Xilonen and Chiori are coming up, and they each have their own merits. Yet, I can't help but remember the Chalk Prince who was caught in the crossfire, Albedo. So today, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at just why Albedo failed as a unit, analysing where things went wrong, how him being replaced sealed his fate, and perhaps discussing whether there's any hope for this guy. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. When you take a look at what Albedo used to be like, you'd probably be pretty surprised. He wasn't even a bad character. Sure, he released next to Ganyu, who was literally the queen of the meta at the time. Man, I miss those days. Anyways, sure, that may have made him seem somewhat underwhelming, but it didn't take long for the lad to acquire a use case that would be his main place to stay for over a year. That'd be Hu Tao double Geo teams. People really enjoyed how comfortable the guy felt to play here. Even outside of Zhongli's shield, crystallized shards were constant. Albedo provided a nice source of off-field sub-DPS that could be procced reliably, and his EM providing passive made him quite the excellent choice for Tao teams back in the day. This continued to be a top team for a very long time, so Albedo's reputation was actually quite decent. You were more than justified in wanting to pull him. It really helped that the Suspedo event happened in 2.3, back when he still had relevance. This drove the popularity of the character a lot, while also offering a wonderful free-to-play friendly weapon for him that ended up being his absolute best in slot over any other option. It looks cool too, and might I draw your attention to the fact that its description parallels Festering Desire? Also, something really dumb that happened to me is that because I was a newer player that joined in 2.1, I didn't fully understand that event weapons would basically never cycle back, so I was too lazy to finish the event and only have a sword at R3. I'm still salty about this, man. It's also pretty nonsensical that big Albedo fans can't get this anymore, but that's a topic for another day. Things continued positively for a while. It also helped that Hu Tao was considered to be one of the strongest DPS characters in the game, in spite of some of her drawbacks, such as wanting, but not needing of course, I was the C0 main for a long time, her C1. She was also one of the most popular mains that you could be. I think the only other main that might have rivaled her popularity would be the Raiden Shogun. So pulling a strong upgrade for her team felt more than justified. Coming hot off of an excellent event which left people really excited about his character, people were thrilled when it came to discussions surrounding Albedo. Then good ol' Arataki Ito came out. Although he's not really that good of a DPS anymore, back during Inazuma, he was kind of the GOAT. You know how we all look at Navia and think, even if she's not Nervalette tier, she's still a really impressive Geo DPS? Back then, it was, even if Ito's not Raiden Shogun tier, he's still a really impressive Geo DPS. Back then, the dude was the standard for Geo. This was the era which many who experienced it firsthand would call it the Geo Renaissance. Goro didn't only buff Ito, but other Geo DPSs who needed it such as Noelle, and Yunjin coming out was also pretty promising as she synergized with Yoimiya while also helping out Noelle. I haven't even mentioned the Xiao team yet. He was one of the Liyue Big Three. So this was another impressive accolade for the Kreideprinze. He was mostly an excellent sub-DPS for him, and if you were a whale, then your vertical investment for Mr. Lament was Albedo C4. It was a nice team to deal with AoE situations for sure. Things were seriously starting to look up for the element, and Albedo too. Now he didn't only have his super meta role as a Tao teammate, but he was also extremely sought after for Ito teams. His lore was super exciting, and now most people were looking forward to yearly winter Albedo events. Oh, how I wish that was the case. The guy was extremely popular despite his bold-looking 3D model, and things were going great for him. But sadly, all good things must come to an end. It started with Yelan. She kicked him out of his Hu Tao team. Xingqiu was arguably the best character in the game back then because we didn't have Farina or Yelan at the time, so the idea of a second Xingqiu? Well, it took people some time to really come around to how insane she was. That conclusion was in fact eventually reached. I myself was a Hu Tao main before, which is funny to look back on because I really don't talk about this character anymore, but it's fun looking back on the time where I was very passionate about maining her. Point is, I felt like Yelan's strength in Tao teams was being underestimated, and since I didn't have Albedo, it was a no-brainer for me to get her. And what do you know, that led me to my first 36 star in the Abyss. Many soon replaced him for Yelan, appreciating her A4's ramping damage bonus, how Xingqiu and Yelan in a double Hydra team were able to cover for each other's flaws, and the sheer amount of personal damage that she brought to the team. Plus, using them together meant that Hu Tao always had enough Hydro to consistently vaporize. That's all fine and dandy, but hey, he still had Ito plus Xiao teams. True, but Xiao was not all that good before, at least not without some crazy investment. My non-Forzan Lament teams can reach like 80 to 100k plunges, give or take, but my investment into this guy is also insane. He's one of the least free-to-play friendly carries in the game, even to this day, but it was even worse back then, because while Xiao is actually really strong once you collect all his puzzle pieces now, back then, yeah, not so much. Ito was a great character for some time, but Sumeri was quick to knock him off of his feet. His damage proceeded to fall behind all the new DPSs, and Dendro not helping out Geo whatsoever really sealed his unfortunate case. Fontaine dug Bro's grave to such a depth that you'd need Kachina's drill to excavate Ito's body. Albedo's meta value proceeded to find itself in a car crash. He was really worth your Primo Gems if you wanted to slot him into a number of decent teams for such a long time, all for everything that suddenly come crashing down. Sure, the Dendro meta was very EM based, and Albedo could provide EM. Even so, there wasn't any team he could fit into that genuinely wanted him in particular. Fontaine literally executed him harder than Focalors. He had about 15 minutes of fame as a good Navia support. He was an effective sub-DPS that could help generate crystal shrapnel for her. He mostly fulfilled this role because there was nobody else who could at the time, other than perhaps Zhongli and TDDS Ningguang. Then, the cutting edge of fashion cut him out of the meta completely. Her kit is just Albedo 2, but that's exactly the problem. She is Albedo 2. She is one of Genshin's very rare instances of direct power creep. Hoyo doing this was them waving their flag, saying that they were ready to completely give up on optimizing Albedo as a character. Mono Geo Ito teams, Chiori. Xiao teams, Forzan, Farina, Bennett, or Jean, and eventually Xianyun. Tao teams, those got modernized even further to look like this. There aren't even any Geos here anymore. The Chronicled Wish banner is pretty much the equivalent to a retirement home for old characters that Hoyoverse doesn't want to work on anymore. I don't think that they would put popular old moneymakers on that banner. They know that Albedo and Eula aren't going to hit the same way that they did back in 2.3, especially when that whole double banner mechanic was new. Man, that was such a shell shock moment. Anyways, point is, he got officially retired from that moment on. Cinder City Kachina literally only added salt to the wound, because at least you could justify skipping Chiori if you already had an Albedo. I mean, not really, she is such an absurd increase to Ito teams over him, but you get the point. Yet with Cinder Kachina, she's free, dude! Chiori had already replaced him in Navia teams, but that sealed the deal. If you thought Chiori's case was bad, man, show Albedo some love then. Xilonen? Come on, man, this is just bullying at this point. Plus, it's not only the meta where he got replaced. My man basically does not get events anymore. They set up such interesting lore for him, yet it's all been lost to time. They need to add permanent events like Honkai Star Rail does. I want to go on a Windbloom date with Venti, man. Now nobody can access his awesome lore through in-game means. You have to access it through old YouTube videos. The yearly Albedo event stopped being a thing, and now we just occasionally see him from time to time, perhaps babysitting Clay or something. Very disappointing, especially because of how interesting he is as a character. His lore feels kinda wild to just never explore in an Archon quest. Also, I want to hear his dialogue, dude. Both his English and JP voice acting are absolutely incredible. Getting replaced like this meant only one simple thing. Hoyo will most likely never design a unit with him in mind ever again. If he works with a character, it'll either be a coincidence or it's because they work with Chiori. I firmly believe that his entry onto the Chronicled Wish banner sealed his fate as a completely useless character for as long as this game will last. For that reason, I sadly believe there to be no hope for him. It would have been very easy to make him good. Just make a Dendro team where both Geo application and EM buffing is wanted. You don't even need a Geo Dendro specific reaction to pull that off. You only need a bit of kit creativity. But because they replaced him so harshly and sentenced him onto a banner which very few will pull on, yeah, he's a no-hoper. I truly do like Albedo, but claiming that he might get buffed in the future will be pure copium. I hate to say it, I usually like to sprinkle in some optimistic cope in regards to bad characters, so we can all look forward to their futures, but I think the poor dude is pretty much donezo. Yet, is this all even a bad thing? Hear me out. He had his time in the meta. He had his era where he was a considerably valuable 5-star pole. This lasted for roughly a year and a half. My personal opinion when it comes to gacha power creep is that a character should last for at least 1 year, while having at least one best in slot use case. Albedo fulfilled both of those conditions. Plus, he had 3 best in slot use cases. Perhaps there's also some more that I'm missing. The general double Geo core, perhaps? characters will eventually fall out of the meta. Now, I don't agree with how Honkai Star Rail does it. Yes, I love getting a new best character in the game once every 2 to 3 patches, then every character who is not a major release is literally some mid-dog water. I do think that metas need to shift in order to keep things interesting, but that's a little too far. I think Wuthering Waves does it pretty nicely too. The game is new, so I can't really comment on power creep there, and things may get really horrible in 2.x plus or something, but for now, I main some of the weaker characters like Don Jin and Chang Li, yet I still feel like they're pretty strong. I don't have a Jinchi, nor do I feel the need for her. I like that. I think Genshin and Wuwa are similar in that regard. They both have very user-friendly power creep. Oh, your character is bad now? Yeah, don't worry, man. Either invest enough in Genshin's case or get good enough in Wuwa's case and you'll be fine. I'm not gonna comment on ZZZ because A, it's the newest of the bunch, and B, I'm still really new to it so I don't know the meta. Sure, Albedo fell off. Yes, he is not good anymore, but I can't help but feel like that's fine. Yeah, it upsets me personally, because I love the character. I want him to be good for personal reasons. Yet, I can't sit here and rave about how bad this is for the game's health or something, when he's simply a relic of the past that had his time in the spotlight. Sure, some old characters do get better treatment than others. Xiao and Xingqiu are still amazing, yet not every character can be peak. If everyone's peak, then nobody's peak, you know what I mean? So, Albedo, while it hurts my soul that you're a terrible unit, I still like you, man. I'm happy that I pulled for you, you're double crowned, and even if this makes me a clown, I'll admit that I do play him from time to time because I think his burst animation is really sick. I think what's sadder is his execution from the event stories. Maybe Hoyo realized that it's not good to have a continuous story when we can't replay old events. Like, it was weird when Venti said, maybe I'll take you for another fast-track poetry class during the last Windbloom, because I haven't played the first Windbloom on my account. What is he talking about? We never even did one. The only reason I understood the context was because I'm down bad for Venti and watched the entire first Windbloom on YouTube. It's a simple solution, really. Bring in the replayable events from Honkai Star Rail. I want to see the dude again. Any fellow Albedo fans here? To be honest, he would be in my design top 5 if his hair did not look like that. I know that might be over-dramatizing, but the first thing I look at in a design is the hair, so if I don't like the hair, then the whole thing looks bad to me. He looks hella cool in this pic. I wish they had a model which wasn't really a short male, but not exactly really tall either. Somewhere in between would have looked amazing for this dude. Hopefully this video was able to tell you about Albedo's fall from Meta Grace. This has been Juice, signing out, and if you fixed D-Luke's hair and his skin, Hoyo, then you can do Albedo too, man. Besides, my hot take is that base D-Luke looked fine as he was. Albedo needed help more than bro.